في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال.
Like food Palestine?
Oh, mashallah, very good, very good. Yes.
Shutters.
Shutter.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Santa. Yeah.
Yes, so you'll buy it. And if you had £10 million, you would get a Ferrari, you would get a mansion, you get all of these things, yes? You've got the money, you would buy whatever your heart desires. But you could have a Ferrari in the driveway, you could have a mansion at home. But if Allah doesn't give you health, you can't get out of bed in the morning. Yes, you won't be able to get out of bed. So what's more valuable, your health or the money? Health. Because without health, you can't enjoy this money. What are you going to do with £10 million in the bank if you can't get out of bed in the morning? Nothing. So no real value to you. That's the value of health. Yes, this is why Yunus ibn Ubay, and a person came to him, he was one of the scholars of the Salaf, and he complained about extreme poverty. He said, I'm going through hard time, I don't have money, I'm struggling, etc., etc. And Yunus, he asked him, he said that, would you be willing to give away your sight for a certain amount of money? He said, no. Well, you can offer me whatever you want, I'm not going to give you my sight away. He said, would you be willing to give your hands away for a certain amount of money? He said, no. If I don't have my hands, how am I supposed to live? He said, would you give your feet away for a certain amount of money? He said, no. You wouldn't give, no matter what a person offered you, you're not going to give these things away. So he said that, I see you've been blessed with hundreds and thousands of blessings. Then you're complaining about what? About poverty. That's one thing that Allah has tested you with, but realize all the blessings that Allah has given you. And as I said, from the greatest of blessings is health. And again, this is why the Prophet said in a hadith, and pay attention to this hadith, he said that whoever, man asbaha minkum, whoever wakes up in the morning, and he has these things, whoever wakes up and he's physically healthy, okay, he's safe and secure, and you've got safety around you. As food for the day, it is as if he's got the whole dunya. It's as if you're healthy, you've got enough food for the day, and you're safe, and it's like you've got the whole dunya. Just imagine now, subhanAllah, somebody waking up in Gaza right now. And they don't have safety and security. They don't know if they're going to live to the end of the day. And they don't have food for the day. And we are blessed, subhanAllah, so blessed. Wallahi, so blessed. We're drowning in the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we say, alhamdulillah, we thank Allah for it, and we use the health. And that's the most important thing here. The Prophet is what? Utilize your health. Don't be lazy. Yes, use your health to do good, to do khair, to contribute to your community, to help out with your masajid, to be a person of khair. It's not just wasting your health, but you're actually using your health and these blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. I remember a few years ago, it's a while ago actually, there was a brother from Bradford. His name was Tahseen Khan, 32-year-old brother. And he was the Amir, he was like the leader of an organization called Al-Kawthar. And this was like a da'wah organization. They did courses, etc. And he was 32 years old, and he was suffering migraines, and he went to get it checked out, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And within a year, he was in hospital for a large part of that year. And towards the end of his life, some brothers went to visit him, and they recorded. It's on YouTube. They recorded this message from him. They said, "What message do you give to the people?" Now he's literally, I think this was a week or two before he passed away. 32 years old. Imagine that. He's lying on the hospital bed, and he says, "My advice to everybody watching is take advantage of your health, before you end up on a hospital bed like me. Take advantage of your health. Take advantage of your time. Use it. Do good. Do khair. Worship Allah. Learn this deen. Encourage others to do good. Because otherwise you'll end up on a hospital bed like myself, and you'll realize that I wasted my time. I wasted this health that Allah gave me." And rahimahullah, he passed away shortly after that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him al-firdaus. And so again, this is what? It's a blessing. A great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll finish this part here on an interview that I came across, again a few years ago, of a brother from Saudi Arabia. He was being interviewed, and the host of the program, he asked him, and it's in Arabic, he says to explain to us your situation, your story. So this is a young brother, I think he was in his 20s at the time. He said, look, I was perfectly healthy. I was fine, I had no issues. I was a young man enjoying life. He said that I was involved in an accident. And because of that accident, I'm paralyzed. To the extent I can't even move my fingers. And so he was sitting in the chair, on this wheelchair, and he said, to the extent I can't even move my fingers. And it was an accident he was involved in, and now he's fully paralyzed. And he goes on to explain that, I was just living life, enjoying life, and I was neglectful of Allah, I wasn't living a life close to Allah. And then towards the end of the interview, he's asked that, is there anything you wish you could do now that you can't do? Anything, is there anything you wish you could do now that you can't do? And his response, subhanAllah, he said, I wish I could do 3 things. He said, number 1, I wish I could perform sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I wish I could perform sajda to Allah. Now I can't even put my head on the floor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us, we have the opportunity, we have the ability to perform sajda, but we don't? I'm too busy, got this going on, got that going on. He said, I wish I could just put my head on the floor and do sajda to Allah. He said, the second thing I wish I could do is I wish I could use my finger to turn the pages of the Quran. That same Quran that I neglected, and I wish I could use my fingers to turn the pages of the Quran. How many of us have our Qurans at home on the shelf? We don't look at it, we don't read it, that's not the purpose of the Quran. He says, the third thing I wish I could do, he said, I wish I could hug my mother on times on occasions of joy and happiness, days of Eid, etc. I wish I could hug my mother. That mother that I neglected, that mother I didn't pay attention to, that mother I used to be aggressive with, I wish I could hug her now. And subhanAllah, this, you only appreciate that, you only understand that and realize that when the health is taken away. So the Prophet is saying, what? Don't fall into a situation where you only appreciate these blessings when they're taken away. So take advantage of your youth before, your health before you become sick. The third thing he mentions is take advantage of your wealth before you become poor. Yeah, your wealth before you become poor. So what's the first one? You can remind me? Take advantage of youth before old age. Second one? Health before sickness. The third one is your wealth, your money before you become sick, before you become poor. Wealth again is a blessing of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you wealth. This is from Allah's blessings. But how do you use that wealth? Yes, what do you do with the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you? The Prophet ﷺ, it's interesting. We always talk about how the Prophet ﷺ had a difficult life and how he never had an abundant amount of wealth. But what we know about the Prophet ﷺ is also that when he did have wealth, he would save that wealth. When he did have wealth, he would give it to those in need. So the Prophet ﷺ would utilize his wealth for khair. And this is why he said that when you feed your family, there's reward in it for you. Yes? When you use the wealth that Allah has given you to feed your family. Now many people feed their family. But if you feed your family with the intention of ibadah, of worshipping Allah, there's ajr in it for you. And the reality of wealth is what? Is that sometimes you can have wealth, and there will be times in your life where Allah will test you with poverty. And many people will, especially those who are older, will know that there's been times in their life where they've gone through difficulty, they've gone through hardship, they've gone through a bit of poverty, and then there's times where Allah has blessed you with more. And even myself, when I look back now, when I used to live in Scotland, when I was growing up, my father, and subhanAllah, it was very interesting when you reflect on things that happen in your life, how everything happens for a reason. When I was growing up, we never used to go to the masjid, we never had a connection with this deen. My father had an off license at that time in Scotland. off license where he would sell alcohol and this was in the 90s, okay, in Scotland. And we had a lot of wealth, a lot of money. Yeah, brand new car, house, everything we wanted we had. But there was no Islam. And my father wasn't practicing. He didn't have any Islam at that time. And one day, somebody came into his shop and he said to him that, look, you'll give me £10. Now £10 in the 90s is their money. He said, I'll give you what's in this box. And it was a shoe box. So my father, he said, okay, fellas, he gave him £10. He opened the shoe box. And inside the shoe box was a copy of the Quran, a translation of the Quran. So my father, he thought at the time, what am I going to do with this? This guy giving me this, taking £10 off me. So he took the Quran and he went in the storeroom and he put it on the shelf. A short time after this, what happened was his partner, his brother-in-law, he sold alcohol to somebody under the age. And the council took away the license. And that was a big source of money at the time. And at the same time as that, a Tesco just opened up. The first ever Tesco in Dundee. Okay, so we have now a Tesco, the license is gone. Within 6 months to a year, everything went. Everything went. The house went, the car went. I remember in those days, going from having everything you wanted, to now you're going to the local shop at 8 o'clock before it closes to get things that are cheap. That's because you couldn't afford it. That's how, and sometimes your situation can change. But in that there was khair. Why? Because when my dad was emptying the shop, he looked at that Quran. And he said, I've got nothing now, I might as well start reading this Quran. And that was the start of his journey. And he 180, he changed his life around and started practicing Islam. And he says now the best thing to ever happen to me was I lost the shop. Why? Because I found Islam. Yes, I found Islam. The point being of the story is what? Is that in life you go through ups and downs. Yes, when you have those ups, use what Allah has given you for the sake of Allah. Yes, use your wealth for the sake of Allah. Make sure you're giving your zakat. Make sure you're giving sadaqah. Make sure you're helping the poor and needy in your community. Allah's blessed you with this wealth, He'll ask you what you did with it. Yes, that's not to say you can't have nice things. Of course you can have nice things. Our teacher used to say to us that wealth isn't an issue. Yes, but just keep it in your hand, don't let it enter the heart. Yes, keep it in your hand, use it for what you need to use it for, etc. But don't let it enter the heart, because when wealth enters the heart, then that becomes your only focus in life. That's what you just start. You go down a path that is very difficult to get out of. Why? Because you're just chasing, and the dunya will lead you away. It will just keep leading you away.
في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال